The topic for today was how a glimpse and how to develop character from the Sunnah of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Resilience, developing forbearance, and also looking at some contemporary issues that unfortunately many of us face, many of our children, most of our children will face and have been facing, and how we can inshallah navigate through those rough terrains and difficulties that we may, as parents and as guardians of other people, youth, we can navigate bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we know when he was born, and after he was born at the age of 7 or probably 10, see, well, the custom of the Arabs was that they would take the children and they would give their children to bedouins, for example. And the Prophet ﷺ, he went and he became a shepherd from a young age. And that taught him a number of valuable lessons. Being a shepherd under the heat of the desert Arabian sun is not very easy. It's very, very difficult. Taught him patience, it taught him forbearance, taught him discipline. And this tradition really, and the reason I mention this, inshallah, you will find, hopefully in a moment it will be clear, it was the children, they were taught from an early young age how to live in this world, how to live in this dunya with the vast difficulties and challenges that we as human beings face. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this whole universe, this whole planet, this earth, and He placed us inside this earth, and He said, I will test you. I will give you tests, I'll give you trials and tribulation. And part of navigating these trials and tribulation is our service towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he always encouraged, to be firm, to be resolute. Don't be a yes man to people. Don't be a yes woman to people. Right? Have a purpose, have a goal, and pursue that goal. When we talk about confidence, for example, we build confidence if we have a purpose in our lives. If we build confidence and courage, if we know where we want to go. If we have an idea, if we have a purpose. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the purpose, is to be servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Within that, if we understand how to get to that point, if we have an idea of this is what I want to do, this is how I want to do it, we'll build confidence. The person does not know what he or she wants to do. The person will not have, confidence to achieve those things. And the Prophet ﷺ understood that, and he, from a young age, the famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, Ya ghulam u'allimuka kalimat. O young person, I will teach you some words. Ihfadillah yahfaduk. Be mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will be mindful of you. Ihfadillah tajidu tujahak. Be mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Be clear. Be dutiful towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in front of you. Meaning, you will find Allah's guidance all the time. Wherever you turn, however you turn, wherever you go, you will find Allah's guidance. Even through the difficulties of life, the challenges of life. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, one hadith comes to mind. He said, La yakun ahadukum imma'a. That none of you should be imma'a, mean characterless people. وَلَا تَكُونُوا imma'a. Another narration. Do not be, O Muslims, a characterless people. Right? تَقُولُونَ إِنْ أَحْسَنَ النَّاسِ أَحْسَنْتُمْ وَإِنْ أَسَاءُوا أَسَأْتُمْ. That if people are good, you say, if people are good, I will be good. If people are good, if people are doing good, I will be good. If people are doing bad, then I will be doing bad. وَلَكِنْ وَطِّنُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Be firm and resolute. Be resilient. Right? And this hadith, there are various different narrations. This hadith teaches us and gives clear guidance from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Number one is that we shouldn't be yes men to anyone except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our obedience is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our obedience is to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Our obedience is not to our nafs, our hawa, to our caprice. Our obedience is to the Quran meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah mentioned this in أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. Have you seen the one who takes his caprice, his desires, as his deity, as his ilah? And this is, we live in this society, in this world, where people now, and unfortunately many Muslims, you see on social media, you see on other platforms, the way they speak, the language, the framework that they work is about ultimately believing in themselves, believing in their own strength. No. Yes, you have to have confidence, you should have confidence, but ultimately it's believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, having tawakkul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So do not be a yes man to mere mortal men. Be a yes man in that sense. Be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have character. Be resolute in what you are doing. And how do you build that character, resoluteness and resilience? Resilience, people talk about grit, for example, or resilience. Right? There are so many different aspects of resilience. I'm going to give a few different examples, inshallah. How do we build resilience? How do we build confidence? How do we build character? And what affects the building of resilience and character in our society now? Back in 2015, there was a study was done in America, for example, and this study looked at countries like UK, America, and Canada in particular, right? They looked at, looked at 600 pregnant women. Right? They looked at 600 pregnant women. In the UK, in America, and Canada, these researchers they found that, for example, peanut allergy is really high in these countries, as compared to other countries. Peanut allergy among children is extremely high in these countries as compared to other countries. So they were baffled. They wanted to find out why. Why are the children in the West, in these countries, are more allergic, they have more allergies, peanut allergies, than other children in other countries. So they wanted to do some empirical research, controlled research, and to find out why this is the case. So they invited 600 women, pregnant women, and these 600 women whose children are predisposed to certain types of allergies. They have eczema and other things. All of them, right? 300 of them, they told, the doctors and the research, they said, 300 of them said, don't go near peanuts. Don't let your children have peanuts. You shouldn't have peanuts. Any type of peanuts, you should not go near them. And they told the other 300 pregnant women who are lactating, who are, right? They told the other 300 women, they gave the other 300 women who are pregnant, lactating, right? Chocolate bars that had peanuts, some peanuts. I said, when your children are old enough, when they're 3, if they're able to chew, they're able to swallow, give slowly those the chocolate bars and feed them once in a while, right? Both 300, the first group of women, the second group of women, 600, their children were predisposed to certain type of allergies, right? After 5 years, when the children were 5 years, 6, 7 years of age, they went back and they tested and they investigated, and they saw that, and the first group of women who were told not to go near any peanuts, right, and not to feed any sort of peanuts to their children, they saw that when they reached the age of 5, 6, 7, those 17% of those children, out of the 300, they had peanut allergies. 17%. So out of the 300 is very, very high. The reason it's high because they're already predisposed, as I mentioned, right? In the second group of 300 women, right, only 3% of the children were identified as children who have peanut allergies. Only 3%. It's very, very different. And they began to ask the question, why? It's one of many different studies. They began to ask the question, why? And they speculated, and they concluded that, for example, our immune system in our bodies, Right? I'm not a doctor. If I get certain things wrong, right, please forgive me. So our immune system, right, is very fragile. So our immune system, we need to strengthen our immune system. Doctors say, eat certain types of food and diet so that you will strengthen your immune system. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the experts they were saying, for example, women who are pregnant or very young, not young, but elderly people and people who have underlying problems, right? They were more prone to getting COVID-19 because the immune system is weak and the immune system is poor. Whereas the young adult, they say, they're okay. So the guidance was different for the elderly and the sick and for young adults. That's how important our immune system is. And when we are young, we are fed, and in fact, doctors say that some bacteria, right, is good for us. If our parents always cleans our table and cleans everything, and we don't have any bacteria, right, then we will not develop a strong and immune system. So what they essentially concluded is that in these countries, the doctors and experts, they kept on telling women who are pregnant, and who are predisposed, the children who are predisposed to some allergies, don't go near them, right? And if you go near them, there'll be problems. And what happened is that the children, they did not develop and strengthen the immune system. Does that make sense? They develop and strengthen the immune system. And when they became older, right, they had peanut allergies. And this is an important example on how to develop character and resilience. So as parents, as parents, there are generally two types of parents. Unfortunately, right? Well, fortunately, right? Two types of parents. One type of parent is that, unfortunately, they're very extreme. They're negligent. They don't take care of their children. And unfortunately, sometimes they even abuse their children, isn't it? Verbal abuse or physical abuse. And those children, unfortunately, when they grow up, they develop problems, right? That's one way of parenting. The other way of parenting is, those parents, they're so obsessively overprotective of their children, right? They're overprotective. They cuddle, they coddle their children. And coddle means, wherever the children walk, they place a cushion. I call it cushion parenting, right? Oh, he's gonna fall, she's gonna fall, and if they fall on the carpet, they'll hurt themselves, right? Cushion parenting, and this happens every single day. I can't let them go out. They can't go to school. They can't go out because they're gonna harm themselves, right? It's too hot. It's too cold. Or if they go to the park in the playground, they'll be teased, and for about, in the first 10 years, children are treated like this, right? And they become so safe. They become so safe. In their own bubble, right? The parents create for them an entire world, entire reality, entire bubble. When they do find difficult and challenging, what happens to the children? They fall apart, right? They fall apart. They didn't develop the character. They didn't develop resilience. They didn't develop the fortress that we need to have, right? So this is what these researchers, and they give so many other examples. Unfortunately, what is happening now in our society, you go to college or university, for example, or even in school, right? In school, and I've seen this. I have children, right? The children have become the parent, and the parent have become the children, right? Isn't that the case? Like, the children have so much power, right? The children have so much power that you can't say anything these days, right? And if the children, go to school, for example, and say certain things, you might be in trouble. I've seen parents where parents were, even non-Muslims, right? Parents where they have to apologize to their children, right? Because the children were messing about. They were being bad. And the parents said, be quiet, don't do this anymore. They were not being bad, they were not being rude or evasive or anything like that. They said, be quiet, showing some discipline. And the children begins to cry. The child begins to cry. What do the parents do? I'm sorry, forgive me. Right? That's not how you discipline a child. Children, they need authority in their life, right? not in a bad way. You're not a dictator, a tyrant in front of them, but they need authority, they need discipline. So in our unfortunate world and society, many children, they don't get that. Again, it's that safe environment. And it's too safe. You know, when children go to, for example, when I was growing up, right, when you go to the playground, you see people fighting, right? There's teasing and there's all sorts of things happening, right? And sometimes, sometimes you get into something, right? And that's I'm not endorsing it, but sometimes these things happen and it's life. Things happen, you have to just let it happen sometimes. And what this does to children, it builds their resilience, builds the character, right? Now, things happen, right? Things happen, one child says to another child something, and it's all over the news. The head teacher calls, and there's a parents' meeting and whatnot. And you go and you find out that it's just a dispute, children disagreeing on how to kick the ball, for example. You see how, how difficult it has become for parents. And you go to school, university, and college level, right? There's research, and I've seen professors who are not able to say certain things at university halls because they're scared. Wallahi, there's research to back this up. They're scared of what the students will say. They're not even able to academically challenge the students because it would hurt their feelings. You're invading my safe space. And this is happening in the UK, this is happening in America, in Canada, and many parts of the world. And there's a reason why this is happening. Why? Because we've created this liberal woke culture that you can't say anything. You make a joke, and a harmless joke, oh, this person is offended, that person is offended, this person is offended, that person is offended. So you can't say anything, right? People get offended, right? People get hurt. It's this woke liberal culture, unfortunately, that we live in. And this is happening in the internet social media age. If you're a parent, listen up. This is really, really important. In the internet social media age, is exacerbating the problem even more, right? Back before, when did Facebook begin? Who remembers? When did Facebook begin? I don't know. 2006. 2005 or 2006, right? Obviously, we had internet, right? But Facebook, the social media has been, Facebook was the first kind of social media, right? But before that, there was Foursquare, I think, and there's another video, right? But Facebook was the game changer. 2005, 2006. In the UK and in America, they done research. So you've probably heard of what they call the millennials, right? Millennials who were born in the 1990s, before 1995, right? And then you have the generation, Z, right? Generation Z or Generation I, who are born after that, who grew up in the internet bubble, and in particular, the social media bubble, right? Most of our children probably, right? And they've done a number of different studies, research in the UK and in America, and they looked at the mental health, as an example, of the millennials and Generation Z, and they saw that the millennials, right? Yes, they suffered depression and acute depression and mental health, psychological problems, right? But it wasn't as high as Generation Z. Right, the Generation Z, when you look at different graphs, is really high, skyrocketed, especially among certain populations, especially among certain demographics, right? So when it comes to, for example, self-harm, right? They saw that hundreds of thousands of boys and girls every year they attend hospitals, right, because of non-fatal self-harm. They're self-harming, for example. Why? We have to ask this question of why. And Muslim youth is included among that. And in particular with girls is increasing. Among the Generation Z, the psychological challenges that they're facing is, it doubled, tripled the amount. And if you look at some of the studies and the graphs and right, it's scary, right? So some of them, they highlight, for example, among the Generation Z, in particular, the ages of 10 to 14, 16. Again, the exact numbers I can't recall, but between the age of 10 to 16, right? Among girls, they have higher rate of suicide, right? Higher rate of self-harm, depression, psychological problems, right? And they compared millennials and the Generation Z, and they saw that again. It's a correlation. They saw that, right? As soon as social media took off, right, the numbers spiked among boys and girls in terms of depression and mental health, psychological problems, right? Among that age group, and they found that 2006, Facebook started. The first iPhone came out, I think, was 2008-9, right? The first iPhone, 2009, and they saw that in America, in particular, right? Before then, not many young people had phones, right? Not many were, engaging in internet. But when the iPhone came, not many of them really had Facebook accounts. But when iPhone and Samsung, meaning smartphones, were introduced, right? Almost, millions of young children in America and the UK and other parts of the world, they began to download the app, Facebook and other social media apps, and immediately, within 1, 2, 3 years, right? How fast the rate of psychological problems, mental health illness, depression, suicide, self-harm, and many other problems, right, spiked, increased. So the research that they say, it is social media is the cause. I mean, they don't know for sure 100%, but there's a strong correlation. There's a strong correlation. Why? Because when boys and girls are different, this is really, really important, right? Men and women are different, physiologically, psychologically, mentally, emotionally. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us, different, right? Boys, the way they show aggression is very different from the way girls show aggression, isn't it? Right? The way boys show aggression is, physically. They get into a fight, fist fight, isn't it? Right? Generally, right? They get into a fist fight, and that's it. Girls, they research, and this is not from me. Research has, there's empirical research, scientific research. They see that girls they show, equal rate of aggression as boys, but the way they show aggression is through disrupting or relationships. So, for example, before the internet, before social media, they will start commenting on other girls' appearance, for example. They'll start commenting on other people's relationship, and they'll start backbiting. They will start saying, spreading rumors. This is how girls, they say, the scientists, show aggression. But the boys, they show aggression physically. Now, most children now are glued to the internet, social media. And what is happening now? The research shows that boys, right? Boys, what they fare, far better than girls, right? So when the internet came, social media, is that the boys, they go into the video games or FIFA, whatever, right? They're into the games, or unfortunately, bad videos, right? Girls, right? What they do, they go on social media and whatnot, right? The way they show their aggression is through, you look at TikTok videos, you look at, so many, Instagram. They make videos of each other. They look at, videos, and they, comment on the videos of other girls. She's looking like this, she's looking like that, and she's looking like this. She's beautiful, she's not beautiful. All these kind of things, right? And there's a lot of discussions and fights that take place among girls online. And I'm not making this up. These are studies that have been done, right, over a number of different years. And between the ages of 10 and 16 or so, or 17, right? Because of those reasons, they say, or there's a deep correlation, the mental illness among girls at that age has increased, right? As it increased. Why? Because they're not forming real relationships. And there've been studies that have been done that social media actually is very, very addictive. Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, right? They employ, psychologists. They employ people, and they spend billions, probably, right? Billions, to see how they can manipulate people, how they can make these games or make these apps very, interactive, very engaging, and very, very addictive. Right, very addictive. Now, when you write a post, for example, I've seen some people do that. When you write a post, they wait. How many likes I'm going to get, how many hearts am I going to get, how many thumbs up I'm going to get. Who am I getting the thumbs up from? Who am I getting the heart from? And if that person is giving thumbs up, right, to another person, then why is he not giving thumbs up to my comment? Like mentally, people become very distracted by that, and this impacts, right? This impacts our psychology, right? So again, coming back to the point. So developing resilience, developing character. Sometimes we need to allow our children, to be children. We need to allow our children to be children. We cannot coddle them, right? We cannot put cushions in front of every step that they take. And because unfortunately our society has become safer, right? In this country in particular, our society, community, in many respects, has become safer than before, right? Before, right, in the 90s, in the 80s, you go out, but I live in an area where you go out, you see the National Front. The National Front? BNP? They're not present now, and you have to deal with these people. Right? Meaning that you have to deal with challenges growing up and difficulties. You have to deal with bad news. You have to, sometimes, olden days, you go to school, the heater is broken, right? You go to school, the food is not all that great. Wasn't all that great, right? You go, there's issues, there's challenges, there's difficulties, and you have to sometimes just get on with it, right? It's life, just get on with it. And that builds resilience, that builds character, that builds personality. But now it's like, okay, everything is, you touch your phone and the food comes to you. You go to school, there's 5 different food types, right? The 3-course meal. I'm not saying we shouldn't have that, but everything is a life of comfort now, right? The more comfort that we have, the more luxury that we have, the more ease that we have, right? And the children have. When they grow up, when they face difficulty, if you have not trained them to face difficult challenges, right, then they will develop problems. They will not be able to navigate. They will not be able to speak to other people. The Prophet ﷺ said in another hadith that, the best believer, the best mu'min, the best believer is he who mingles with other people, right, who interacts, engages with other people, and is patient and is forbearing, perseveres because of the hurt other people might give him or her. Meaning that, we go out, we engage at work, we go to university, in life generally, we'll see people with different personalities. Does that make sense? We'll see people who are introverted, we see people who are extroverted, we see people who are very direct, we see people very calm, very harsh. This is when we go among our friends' circles, for example, we have different personalities, but this teaches us. But if we only if we only interact with people who are introverted for 10 years or 20 years, what will happen? You become introverted. If you only interact with people who are extroverted, for example, we will be extroverted, generally, right? Generally. So if you're only receiving, comfort and ease and, pleasantries, right? This will develop this, inside a narcissistic person. And unfortunately, we live in a society where a lot of people on social media are narcissists. Right? People are narcissists, right? The words that they use, this is my safe space. You are invading my safe space. What are you talking about? I'm in a public space, right? You go your way, I go my way. I'm not invading anything. People do that. People use these words. These are woke, liberal, kind of problematic words that unfortunately is destroying people and destroying. You know, I remember sometimes I post. I've got Facebook, so post like critique of certain areas, right, in knowledge, for example, right, maybe psychology or whatever, right. And there are people who get offended. I'm not, analyzing any individual. I'm just critiquing certain concepts in an academic, really academic manner. And there are people who come on. Why are you saying this? You are, the people who come on are, counselors and psychologists, right? So why are you saying that? You're hurting my feelings. Why are you not validating my feelings? Right? I don't know who you are. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm just critiquing something. And this is happening on social media. This is happening in university. I've seen, teachers lecturers where they say that I'm not able to say things because the students they will say, I've invaded their privacy, and I've hurt their feelings, and I've hurt them. And there's movements in America, in the UK. Like students are lobbying that, to ban and to cancel professors. And the professors are there just to teach historical academic way. But there are students now who are lobbying to cancel, the cancel culture, professors. Why? Because they've grown up in this woke culture. They've grown up in this, cushion culture. And when they hear or listen to an opposing view, they're not able to handle it. They're not able to handle it. So if you are parents, right? To end, inshallah. If you're parents, right? Yes, there are challenges outside. Yes, there are difficulties outside. But let your children go outside. Let your children, engage in activity. Let them fall. Let them, let them get a bruise. It's all fine, right? You don't want to intentionally do that to them, obviously, right? But sometimes these things, when they go to the park, for example, these things happen. When they go to the park, children will tease each other. That's part of growing up. That's part of life, right? Obviously, I'm not endorsing bullying. When there's bullying, right? When there's continuous every single day bullying, that's obviously bad. We have to deal with. But here and there issues, it's not a problem. Let it happen. And even bullying, the word bullying is used so frequently now. Or he said something that I didn't like. He's bullying me, or she's bullying me. There's small things. People use so big words. Why? Because it's the inflated ego that they have. This cushion culture that we live in, right? The ego, the egos are so inflated that you can't say anything, and without hurting the feelings, without offending the feelings. So, if you're parents, right, let your children fall, let your children slip, let your children make mistakes. It's okay. Making mistakes, is okay. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, "Inna ma'al usri yusra." This is part of life. Difficulty is part of life. But when you have difficulty, you will understand what ease is. When you have difficulty and challenges, you will overcome those, and you'll become a stronger person. You'll become a person with resilience, a person with personality, a person with character. So the Prophet, to end again with the hadith, the Prophet said, "La yakun ahadukum imma'a." None of you should be a characterless person. Yes, man. In ahsan al-nas taquluna in ahsan al-nas ahsantum. Right? Ahsantum. That you say if people are good, you will be good. And if wa in asa'u asa'tum. That if people are bad, then we will be bad. I don't follow the crowd. Right? Be your own man, your own woman, be your own person. Right? Be resilient. Develop that resilience. Right? And have a purpose in life, which is to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to practice your peace. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to what pleases Him, inshallah.